Well, thank you for joining us this morning. I hope everybody had a quick cup of coffee and a chat outside. My name, again, is Kevin Koop, content guy for morningnewsbeat.com. If you have not read Morning Newsbeat, I hope you will. It's a news and information site about the industry. It's been on vacation. I'm actually on vacation right now, but I figured if I had to work while on vacation, this is where I want to do it. So we're going to have a really interesting panel this morning talking about e-grocery and the future of organic fresh produce at retail. The first thing I want to do is thank our session sponsor, Domex Superfresh Growers, and our AV sponsor, Argenau. So give them a round of applause. We want them to feel like their money has been well spent. I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to ask each of them to spend a couple of minutes describing their business, and after that, it's a free-for-all. So I'm going to have some questions. I've got lots of questions. You may have some questions. I'm going to be wandering around out there with a microphone, so raise your hand. If I don't see you, yell at me. I respond really well to that. And so we're going to have a conversation this morning about e-grocery and where things seem to be going. So let me introduce our panelists first. We have Tony Stallone, who is the VP of Merchandising with Peapod. We have Dan Bourgeau, got it right, Head of Brand Partnerships with Instacart, and Don Barnett, COO of Sunbasket. So join me in thanking them for being with us this morning. So, Tony, I'm going to start with you. Okay. Peapod has been around longer than anybody else on this stage, certainly on this stage, and most people, most companies, e-commerce companies in the business. So, talk a little bit about the past, but also where you guys are right now.
Sure. I'm a big story guy teller, so I like to always tell stories. So, one of the stories I tell is when Peapod began. So, e-commerce, Peapod, began in 1989. So, does anybody know when the internet began? Well, it began really, I think, in 1989 as well, but it was not open to the public domain. Really, the birth and the growth of the internet began in 1993. So Peapod began 4 years before the internet. When did Amazon start? Amazon started in 1994. So Peapod was there 5 years before Amazon. And two of the founders, they were brothers that started the company, had this great idea because they realized, and they're very brilliant people, they're humble people, but they don't always pick the right businesses. They had this idea in 1989 that new computers were going to change people's lives and how they could take advantage of. And Andrew was the older brother and always a little bit smarter one. Thomas is the tech, and he's still with us too, so Thomas is a great guy. But they said, Andrew stood up and he said, I think we can sell books through computers. 1989. That was 5 years before Amazon. And his mother stood up at the kitchen table and said, son, I love you, but I've been a librarian for 25 years and you can never make any money selling books. So the last time I checked, Jeff Bezos was a billionaire and Andrew is still working, okay? So unfortunately, he picked a very, very difficult category to fulfill through online. But we've grown a lot. We went public in 1998. There's other stories that I can tell you about. But the one thing that we think we established and we have leadership in is online e-commerce grocery, okay? We have a sustainable, scalable model. Now, everybody is in the business, from the A word, Amazon, all the way down to, you can think about it, Kroger. Everybody has an online strategy. But we've really been at this a long time. I've been with the company 20 years, so we still feel like we have leadership, and we have sustainability, and we have, the most important thing is scalability. The one thing about delivering food, and we're all in the food business, we all know it's not a very easy business to do, especially when it comes to fresh, perishable commodities, fruits and vegetables. So that's all I have.
So, but just because a couple of quick points. You were acquired by Ahold in what year?
2001.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're unique because you actually serve as the e-commerce arm of Ahold's, and now I guess Delhaize's stores to some degree, right? That's expanding in the markets they serve.
Yep.
But also continue to have a pure play approach in Chicago,
Midwest,
and in the Midwest.
Yep.
So you're actually working both sides of that fence.
Correct.
Which is interesting. So, Dan, You have a little company called Instacart. They occasionally pop up in the news.
We're a little younger than Tony's story. So I'm the young pup on the stage, I guess. Has everybody heard of Instacart? Who has heard of Instacart here? Person who checked me in for registration had never heard of us. So we still have work to do. Everybody's heard of Peapod. I still obviously got to convince other people to hear about us. But Instacart, I run brand partnerships, so my responsibility with my team nationwide is we manage all of the partnerships. We have about 2,000. We work with Kraft Heinz all the way down to the smallest players and helping them try to figure out their e-commerce solution. There's somebody separate from me who manages all of our retail relationships. But as you know, we're in, for those of you who know us, we're in 200 markets plus. We're with 200 retailers. The biggest retailers we have are Whole Foods, Costco, H-E-B, Kroger, Publix, Wegmans, et cetera. So we have quite a long list, and we have a lot of independents with us as well. The importance of us being at this conference is 95% of all of our orders have at least some kind of produce in them, right? So the top categories we sell on Instacart, the top two is fresh fruits, followed by fresh vegetables. The third category isn't even a close third. Isn't even a close second, I'm sorry, in terms of its volume. What's interesting for us is when I joined 3 years ago, I remember researching the space, and the number one reason why people did not want to have their groceries delivered to them is because they didn't like somebody else picking their fresh produce for them. Strangely enough, 95% of our baskets have produce in them, so somebody's lying, right? So from that perspective, this is a really important category. My team's really good at working with Kraft Heinz and PepsiCo and Coca-Cola and the others. We just haven't really done a whole lot with produce, and I think it's a really important category for us. I think it's a really important category for everybody else in this room here too. So there's huge opportunities at Instacart, and that's why I'm here.
A couple quick follow-ups,
Sure.
if I can. So, and Instacart, you mentioned all your retailers. Didn't mention, I think, what the newest one that was just announced this week, which was Hy-Vee.
Yes.
Right? Big,
Yep.
You know.
We add so many, it's hard to keep track. Am I allowed to be that?
You can, yeah, sure.
conceited?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it's interesting, when the case of a Hy-Vee, the announcement was that they were joining up with you and shipped. It was a dual announcement from
Yep.
Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
Are those characterized as being tests? Are they basically, is it the Hunger Games? Let's see which one works out better, and they will survive?
Yeah.
Or is it just a bifurcated strategy?
It's their strategy, right? They're trying to figure it out, and I think it's smart. Publix did that. H-E-B's done that. I think it's smart for a retailer. Like, don't presume to put all your eggs in one basket. We have to prove ourselves just like Shipt would too. So I think it's important for a retailer that, hey, if there's this giant world of people shopping online, they're not all doing it through Instacart, right? They're doing it on Peapod, they're doing it on us, they're doing it on Shipt, they're doing it on others. It's important for the retailers, as good as they are, that they got to make sure that they've got their bases covered. In turn, one of us may lead down the road to be better than the other, or it's more efficient for them to work with one versus another. Those things have come to fruition. So there's some that we've had where we've competed with others and they've gone with us, and there's others where they've stayed pretty open-ended and they're still using everybody.
What's interesting about it, and we can get into this conversation as we go along, to me, is that you're right, they're not going to put all their eggs in one basket, but they're taking half their eggs and they're putting it into a basket that is owned by one of their competitors, right?
You're
Target.
correct, yes.
Right? So then that to me is
That's not us.
No, it's not you. I get you. Although you're delivering for some of their competitors, you're not one of their competitors.
That is correct.
Right. So that's an interesting, but we can talk about that as a trend as we go along. Don.
Great to be here this morning. I'm Don Barnett, Chief Operating Officer of Sunbasket. Sunbasket is an e-commerce meal kit company. Our mantra is make healthy eating easy, personalized, and delicious. So those are kind of some of our foundation pillars that we work from. So we do that in a number of different ways. And kind of at the brand pillar level, the healthy part leads with organics. We talked a little bit about it the last session, where organics are pesticide-free. They've got a great consumer feeling about being healthier than some of the other options. Although it was an interesting comment that one of the panelists made where somebody's eating all organic but gaining weight. It's like, well, how does that happen? Well, it's not all about organics. It's about other things in the food. So a second part of what we do on the healthy side is we screen all of our meals through our nutrition panel. So, we carefully monitor the amount of sodium in there. We have no processed sugars. We look for the right types of fats, things like that. So we make sure that all of our meals are very, very health oriented. On the easy side, we're not a learn-to-cook meal kit company like some of our competitors. So a lot of the meal kits you'll get will be a 45-minute to an hour preparation. That's great for certain people. We target more of the 20 to 30-minute preparation. So what we'll do is we'll do some of the harder steps. And so if there's a sauce that has 5, 6, or 7 ingredients, oftentimes we refer to that as our secret sauce because our sauces are amazing. And so we'll do that blending and prepare that for the home chef and bring that to you so you can prepare it quicker. But the flip side is we really believe that part of the experience is having really fresh, healthy food. And so while we could easily chop an onion and give it to you, we could easily chop a romaine heart and give it to you. We think that's part of the kind of the freshness of the experience. And so we let that happen in the home kitchen. So you're chopping your own onions and chopping your romaine and so forth. So from the delicious standpoint, we've got a team of chefs that's amazing, led by Chef Justine Kelly, who was the head chef at a James Beard award-winning restaurant called Slanted Door up in San Francisco. Probably a number of you from the West Coast might have eaten there. She is really amazing in how she brings out some really big flavors without what's typically done if you go to a restaurant. The big flavor drivers are salt and fat. And so we don't use sodium. There's no processed sugars in our foods. We're really careful on the types of fats that we put in there. But she uses herbs and spices to bring out these massive flavors. And so I think it's one of the things that's really set us apart is the deliciousness of our foods. That we give to our customers. So just a couple other things, and I'll turn it back to you, Kevin. So I think we're the youngest company here, founded 3 or 4 years ago. We are national now, have been national for the last year and a half. We have 3 distribution centers, and we ship to 98.6% of the zip codes in the United States. So you think from a business model standpoint, that's a really different business model than say a retailer business model or traditional retail business model. So there's pros and cons to all business models. That certainly is an advantage. And then of course we deliver direct to customers, and so we use third party. We don't need to get into the distribution, so we've partnered with the FedExes and the UPSs and a bunch of regional carriers to deliver our products right to people's doorsteps.
Is sourcing products easy, hard? I mean, in terms of finding the kinds of products you want to put into your meal kits?
The sourcing side is interesting, I'll put it that way, because if you think of kind of a traditional buyer-seller relationship, the sellers, the growers, and I've been on the grower side for most of my career, so the growers are looking for people that are buying every week, hey, can I get that consistent order of 1,000 boxes of celery and 500 boxes of onions, or how many truckloads a week you're going to take? Where in our space, we change our meals every week. And so our ingredients change every week. And sure, we're going to do an order of garlic every week. But there's a lot of the items that are specialty that we're in and we're out and we're in and we're out. So that's really one of the challenges that our buying team has, is working far enough ahead with our suppliers to make sure that we get a good balance there.
Clearly, the meal kit business has exploded. Have you gotten into the meal kit business at all? Has it had an impact on what you do? Are you doing meal kits at Peapod?
Yeah, we do meal kits at Peapod. It's interesting. I think the whole dynamics are changing, and everybody in this room should realize, and we might as well shake it up a little bit, is that throw out what you know about merchandising, throw out what you know about what consumers are thinking and how you sell consumers. It's changing, and it's changing so rapidly. And if people don't adapt to these changes, they're going to be left by the wayside here. So I always say merchandising is on 5 points now. So it's aspirational, it's inspirational, it's experiential, it's solution-oriented, which is meal kits. I remember 3 or 4 years ago, I was at a conference, and a person from Nielsen basically looked at the audience and said, hey guys, I can't tell you any more about millennials except for they don't know how to cook. And that's why you're seeing proliferations of meal kits and solutions. So, and produce is a difficult, and people here at this organic produce conference, we've seen plateauing on produce, and it's because I really think people don't know how to cook. They don't know how to prepare the vegetable. They don't know how to prepare the fruit, and it's your job here to show them. It's your job here to tell the story, and it's your job to take your commodity or your item or your product and present it in such a way that makes it easy and a solution-oriented to that customer to use. And that's why I'm saying, guys, I can't overemphasize our industry is changing. The way our customer interacts with our industry is changing, and we have got to get in front of it.
It's interesting. That's exactly where we ended the last session here, right? Talking about the fact, I would maintain that we have, in some ways, we have, despite everything out there with the internet, social media, all that stuff, we also may have the most misinformed and underinformed customer base, perhaps in history, because there's a lot of things people think they know a lot, but they don't really necessarily know anything. And I think that that's an enormous challenge that brick and mortar comes at differently than e-commerce does. Who does your meal kits that you deliver? Are you doing them yourselves?
We do them ourselves.
Okay, so they're all in-house. You in the meal kit business at all?
Or
your retailers?
We aren't, but the retailers are, right? Albertsons just acquired someone. Publix has been doing it for a long time. We do really well because when we first launched with Publix, we didn't do their meal kits. They do their own in-house, and even like their sandwiches did incredibly well when we launched them on our platform. I think some of these retailers that you're seeing are starting to acquire meal kits. I think it's smart, especially the way millennials shop. To Tony's point, right? Millennials shop in a very specific way. They're not big browsers. They don't really know everything in an aisle. We get into it when we get into aisle information about how people shop online is so different than how they shop in store. That's where a meal kit solution becomes very handy in the fact that, hey, if I'm only looking at 3 rows in a category I'm searching for, and there's something that's an absolutely complete meal, the way people shop online, that's an easy thing to acquire. I think that's why you saw Albertsons and others start to acquire these companies to, hey, why build our own from scratch? Let's get somebody that's already established themselves with a little brand equity, and let's build upon that because we're Albertsons.
And do meal kits create any sort of unique challenges in terms of the delivery process, or is it pretty much the same?
So far, it's been pretty much the same. Yeah, there's no real uniqueness to it.
And last question, then we'll move off meal kits the way I'm drilling down now. So a lot of meal kit companies are either being acquired by retailers or are doing business with retailers, right? I mean, that's what Blue Apron. That was their. In some ways, it seems like their savior strategy, right? This is the only way to save the business is by doing this. Is that a move that you guys have either made or entertained at this point?
We haven't made that move yet. We've talked about it, but we're still enjoying a lot of growth in e-commerce, and there's just a bunch of initiatives that we're going after that are going to continue to fuel our growth. So I wouldn't rule it out. I think there's a place, absolutely a place for meal kits at traditional retail. There's also a place for traditional retail in e-commerce, and I think that's all kind of sorting out right now.
Okay. So I'm going to come down there. Oh, we got a hand in the back. That's great. But as I work my way back there, let me just ask this question. So the last time we did a session on e-commerce here at this conference was 2 years ago. And since then, there's been some developments in e-commerce, right? Amazon bought a company called Whole Foods, which certainly shook everybody up. It's about a year ago, I guess now. So let me ask you a question, all of you. What kind of impact did Amazon's decision to acquire Whole Foods and clearly make an investment in brick and mortar, but also bring its giving Whole Foods a real e-commerce strategy? What impact has that had on any of your businesses? You want to start? Instacart.
Sure. Yeah.
Because you're losing a big customer over time, right, with Whole Foods.
Potentially, yes. So
Only
it's
potentially?
interesting. Listen, it was a year ago, so
Right.
thanks for reminding me of the anniversary. So it's a year ago that Amazon acquired Whole Foods.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. I'll forgive you later. What was interesting is when it happened, I thought, what the hell? We just signed a new deal with Whole Foods that was long term, and then Amazon acquires them. There's a bunch of things as to why that doesn't make sense for us, and obviously the thought process is that we may lose Whole Foods because they'll eventually move into Amazon full term. What was interesting is what happened in actuality was every single retailer that we've been trying to talk to get an e-commerce solution on board wanted nothing to do with us until right after that happened. And suddenly everybody was calling us saying, hey, I need this now. Some of the retailers, right when I joined, I've been there 3 years, first 2 years, ramping up a retailer was one market, then one market, then one market. Then we, post-Amazon, which is actually a real window, post-Amazon, when they acquired Whole Foods, became, okay, how fast can you launch my 1,000 stores for me? I want to know how you can do that. And 1,000 stores spreads out across 200 markets. Well, we can launch that pretty fast. So it really helped us evolve very fast in terms of we were really slow in our plan. Like the year it happened, we were thinking we were going to add about 70 markets, which would put us just under 100 markets. We had to upgrade that when Amazon acquired Whole Foods because the volume that was coming our way. We went from what we thought was going to be somewhere around 80 to 90 markets by end of year. We ended up being in 207. So the growth, they actually helped us with growth, even though there's the potential we're going to lose a really important retailer in Whole Foods. They really helped us garner a lot of other retailers, in particular in conventional, which was a big deal to us. We've now since added Sprouts, which is a great partner for us from the organic perspective, but conventional has been huge for us in terms of going up against that.
It's interesting when you say that. It almost sounds like a win-win for everybody because if I'm not mistaken, Whole Foods is also an investor in Instacart, right?
They are, yeah.
So in fact, they're making money because you're doing better in other markets because those companies are hiring you to compete with them.
Yeah, it's a little weird. And guess who owns Whole Foods now?
I'm just sitting here thinking, this is how Jeff Bezos defines an ecosystem, right? I make money even with my competitors.
Somehow we got into this flywheel, which was pretty bizarre. But hey, it's been great, and yeah, to that point, there's a lot of nuances to it that we don't need to get into. But yeah, to that point, did it somehow come across as a win-win for us? It actually did.
How about at Peapod? Impact from the Amazon acquisition of Whole Foods?
Obviously, there's a lot of impact. Stock prices, of all the major retailers lost billions of dollars on that day that an announcement was made. CPG companies lost billions of dollars. I think it accelerated the disruption that people are looking at. I had talked to our leadership team just a couple of weeks before, and I described our retail landscape as saying, I feel like I'm standing on a railroad track, and I see a freight train coming at me at 100 miles an hour. And I'm asking everybody around me, does anybody see that train coming? Well, it happens that train hit, and that was when Amazon announced Whole Foods. Now people are saying, hey, retail is changing. And I think one thing is that I think a lot of retailers may take their eye off the ball, which is the wrong thing to do. Does anybody know Amazon's mission statement at all in the room? I used to really think it was Jeff Bezos, and I like to always call him Jeff because people think I know him, which I don't know him. But I used to think it was he wanted to develop or create the biggest company in the world. Therefore, he named the name after the biggest river in the world, Amazon. But if you look at their mission statement, and if you look at everything he does, it's not that. It is to be the most customer-centric company in the world. And that's what we focus on at Peapod. If you take your eye off that ball, your customer, and you don't do everything you can to service that customer, you're going to lose this game. So at Peapod, we double down our efforts to know our consumer and to make sure we're meeting their needs. And we are, especially not now, where is the consumer going to be in the future? And the future is changing rapidly. I love that, if you guys didn't see the Hartman presentation, it was a great presentation. I don't know if she's still here. I wanted to give her kudos on that. We're moving from a, kind of a semi-rural population to an urban population. It's happening very quickly. 1 out of every 5 American right now is multiracial. It's going to be 1 out of every 3 in the next couple of years. All these things are changing. And if you don't know who that customer is and what that customer wants, they can't cook, right? You're not going to meet their needs. And meal kits, the one thing about meal kits is that everybody's in the business, and I think you guys do, by the way, the best job out of all the meal kit companies. I really give you guys a lot of kudos. Freshness is the key. If you don't have a lot of fresh produce in the meal kit, you're not going to be successful. We found that out. So yes, Amazon has accelerated disruption, but it really made us focus more on how do we succeed? We succeed with the customer.
Does it, and this is also to you, Don, is there a growing acceptance of the notion of, I mean, because I still bump into people who say, in the long term, people are not going to buy groceries online. So, but has this kind of altered people's perception that maybe Peapod customers are more willing to shop online and buy more online simply because they recognize it seems to be more of a trend as opposed to a fad? And the same thing would go on your side.
Is that to me?
Well, either Tony or Don.
You guys.
Are customers more accepting? Are Peapod customers more willing to buy online simply because they recognize that Amazon's gotten in the business, they're doing it with Whole Foods, and therefore they've sort of given the people permission to do so?
Yeah, I can say yes, but I don't think it was Amazon. I think it's people's lifestyles. Technology, it enables our lives. It makes our lives easier. And the young generation, and we used to talk about that 7 years ago. These were the kids growing up on, cell phones, video phones, Google, everything. That's how they transact, and they just use technology as an enabler too. So I don't think it was Amazon. I think it's that generation that's very used to using technology.
And Don, it occurs to me, one of the things, if you go into the Amazon Go store in Seattle, one of the things they have is meal kits, and their own meal kits, which they announced. I remember when they announced they were going to do their own meal kits, I think Blue Apron stock plummeted that day because their history. So have you noticed any kind of change related over the last year to people's greater acceptance of the idea of e-commerce?
Well, we're definitely paying attention, for sure. We're in a little different place, so we view ourselves more of a product company than a platform. And so as a product company, you're successful when you laser focus on specific needs and you provide solutions for the needs. And so when I talked a little bit about our mantra, where ease, okay, so you can get so far with ease, but that's kind of really meal kit 101. It's like, all right, I've got everything ingredient. Then you take it to the next level. Well, we're healthy. Well, there's another layer. And so I kind of look at it almost as concentric circles. The closer you can get your solution into the center of the circle, the better you're going to resonate. So what we can do as a product company is really tailor solutions for specific needs. So what we look for is we've got massive data capabilities, data scientists, software engineers, digital marketers, and we slice and dice cohorts every which way, and we try to find pockets of where there are needs. And then what we can do is we tailor solutions to very small and very specific needs. If you're on a platform, you can do that, but it's a lot harder because you're trying to provide solutions for a broad category of people. So I think that's one fundamental difference between what we're trying to do and what maybe a broader retail solution might be.
Hey, I'm sorry, can I just add?
Yeah, sure.
We're talking about Amazon. They entered this space. Jeff Bezos has a mantra, which is, if anybody's heard it, it's called Day One. And if you don't know this, the building that he and his executives sit in is actually called Day One. Day One means that it's always the first day of the business. We're always trying to make sure we're paying attention to what's going on around us. So they consider themselves entering the business. So if any competitor, anyone in their business, they pay close attention to them. So what I don't like is when I'm around somebody who says, Amazon doesn't know grocery, right? They've never done this. They're going to have to try and figure this out. Well, they've done really good at figuring a lot of things out. And if you're in competition with Amazon, you should know full well that they're trying to figure it out, and they're really good at figuring it out. So if you think that they're not going to be able to solve this, you're wrong. They will, and they'll become a big competitor to you. So you got to pay attention.
And one of the real important things about that Day One mantra is they also don't believe in the issue of legacy. You'll never find anybody at Amazon ever saying, "Oh no, we always do it that way. That's why we have to do it."
Right.
They're willing to break a lot of eggs to make a really, really good omelet. and they're willing to learn from failure. And the example I always use in this is, how many people here in the audience have an Amazon smartphone? Right? They launched it to great fanfare. It's going to be great. It's going to change the world, and it died because nobody wanted it. Nobody needed it. But all the technology that they built into the smartphone and all the learnings from that failure created the whole Alexa and Echo business, which has been a phenomenal success for them. So that's the amazing thing about Day One, is they learn from everything, especially their failures, and are willing to reinvent themselves constantly. Go ahead, you're up.
Thanks, Kevin. My question's for Tony.
Tell everybody who you are.
I'm Robert Kunzler from Mike Organics. We're based in Canada. Tony, you mentioned the 5 pillars, but then you only gave us 4.
Did I?
So
Yes, I think.
Oh, yes.
I,
The fifth one
I
was-
was gonna.
if you could do us one favor, if you could review the 5 again, and
Okay.
just give us a quick sort of assessment of what each one means to you.
Sure. Oh, so sorry about that. I needed more coffee this morning. So it's inspirational, and I think that's where this group plays a little bit, because you want to be inspirational about your brand. It's aspirational. Consumers want to think better of their lives, think better of how they impact the world, which is, you have a lot of impact on that too. Because I think the biggest message on organics that you guys, guys, again, stop thinking the way you're thinking. Google whatever business you're in. That's how people search your product. So I did a quick test here. I Googled organic fruit. And I'm telling you, it's a mess. I don't understand organics. If I read all that stuff, I have no idea what you're trying to tell me. I have no idea what your product means to me. That's where you should be looking. Customers are engaging in search. And that's where you need to start. You need to optimize your story, your products on search. But again, be aspirational and inspirational on those searches, because that's what it is. And you really have 5 to 10 seconds to tell that story. So I said experiential. You know, the panel, Nielsen and Hartman talked about people are traveling are traveling everywhere. You know, they go to Italy, they go to Turkey, they go to Morocco. All these things, experiences, are becoming influence and then their purchasing decision. Make your product a experience, whether it's talking to Farmer Joe or talking to Joe's 3rd generation kids that have come back to the farm and are creating these great artisanal products. So make it a very experienced product. Then a solution. People want solutions. And we're seeing, I think one of the plateaus is that people are moving into other products. One of the organic growth that we're seeing, they said, is frozen foods. And it's because people don't know how to cook, but they want organic, so they're going into that. Meal kits, stealing a lot of damn business, okay? So that's why you want to be solution-oriented. And the one that will never, ever change, and I'm sorry, it's the most important one. So if you ask all these things about our consumer, and what is this generation millennial, what is this generation Z, right, which is different than the millennials they're telling me. The one thing that's not going to change with any of them, value. They have got to see value in your product. And it's not 10 for 10, it's not 50% off. It's value in using the product, whether it's just a solution-oriented, or as I get a lot of value for my money using that product for my family, for myself, or however it interacts. So sorry about that, leaving out value. That's the most important. And if you want to add one more, I only have 5 fingers, so if you want to add 6, you could say health.
Okay. You're up.
Hi, Dave Bloom from Whiskey Hill Farms, and our focus is being the largest producer of turmeric in the country.
Turmeric is so hot, I gotta tell you.
I'm glad you said it instead of me. But so we're doing really well in cities like Seattle, San Francisco, LA. But it occurs to us there's a lot of people who would like to get turmeric that don't live near one of the big organic retailers. So my question to you guys is that something that is going to work really well in the online commerce business, because it's durable, it's not, doesn't spoil, it's easy to ship. So what do you guys think?
Well, I'll turn it to Don, because turmeric, and I bet you have it in your meal kits.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's such hot, but the problem is, why should consumers use turmeric? Tell me.
Well, it's yellow, but but of course it's the health PR on it is really top notch, and people are trying to find ways of making different cuisines.
But do you find that retailers do a good job of explaining that?
Gosh, am I gonna?
Take a shot. Go ahead. Blame it on me.
Go ahead.
Because I'll say no.
Yeah, I would say in general, it's hard for consumers to get information at a point of sale, about any particular thing. Ask somebody what to do with kohlrabi, and they just look at you with a blank stare. Turmeric is even more like that.
Would you agree with what he's saying?
Yeah, I would say, but then I would say it's your fault. You got to help the retailer. You got to help, the solution oriented to it. Because I had to do research on my own. Why are people buying turmeric? Do they want powdered turmeric? Do they want turmeric seasoning? What do they want? And what I found out really is it's really used in smoothies a lot. People grind. Well, you got to tell us, And then you got to put it in a solution oriented that customers can use, whether it's in Don's meal kit or a pea pod smoothie kit or another retailer that that Dan works with.
Quick question: do your meal kits? Do any of you have juice kits? We all remember Juicero came and went really fast. Do you guys send out bags of things to put into your juicer?
We've done smoothies, but I think that's another development area, and I think there are companies out there doing that. I think to get to your other question is there's different business models, but certainly I think all of us here would say one of the biggest opportunities for organics is broader distribution, right? And so where if you look at traditional retailers, they're pretty much cover most of the U.S., really kind of broad line. Maybe they get into organics, well, a little bit less the U.S., a really prestige organic. It's a really small footprint of and it is pretty much limited to the urban centers. So if you've got a specialty product, you're going to be limited until now in getting your products out. So what we can do, I think probably all three of us, is we're broadening where we can get the reach. So instead of going to a traditional retailer, and I think oftentimes the retailers say, well, draw a 3-mile radius or a 5-mile radius around my store, you go online and we'll drop it at your doorstep. And so I think that's a huge opportunity for here, provided the messaging is clear, great point, provided the solution is real, that's another great point, and provided it's good value.
For me, it's when you're shopping online, it's very different than shopping in store. So turmeric, if you're in row 150, nobody's ever going to discover you unless they know what turmeric is and they're looking for a specific reason. If you want them to trip over it, then you need to be in the top 3 rows of any aisle that they're searching, right? So you walk into an aisle and imagine, right, when you walk through produce, you walk by the bananas, the avocados, the pineapples, the bag salad. You walk past everything, right? Online, just imagine walking to produce, taking 3 steps in, looking to what's in front of you, then taking 3 steps back out. That's how an online shop is, right? So the top 3 rows in any aisle that you are browsing or shopping on Instacart generates 89% of the items added to basket. If you are not in those 3 rows, you're fighting for 11% of the things added to basket. Critical for you to be there, right? It's whether you're avocados or grapes or what have you. Avocado is the top 2 most searched term on our platform. Eggs is number 1, right? It becomes a big deal about, am I in that buy it again aisle, buy it again basket with clients? And to Tony and Don's point, it's about getting people to understand it, right? Turmeric, right? I love it for anti-inflammatory. After workouts, putting it in your smoothie. There's supplements now, like Ancient Nutrition and others are putting that in. Those are really important features that people don't know about turmeric that are important. Stories got to get out there. In turn, right, your SEM and your SEO, your organic placement in an aisle, is that natural thing you didn't have to pay for because people just know you and love you, and you're always in the top 3 rows. If you're not, you have to figure something out with the SEM solution, which is, how do I get myself up there?
Again, it's like the Hunger Games, because not everybody can be in the top 3 rows. Right?
That's right.
Exactly.
Yep.
We have a question over here.
Hi, my name is Jackie, and I work for Fair Trade. Many of you guys mentioned the healthy aspect of your business model linked to organic and the importance of understanding your consumer and trends. Are any of you guys thinking about the second wave of sustainability and how consumers, particularly millennials, want to know more about who produces their food and the story behind it? Are you guys looking to Fair Trade certification at all?
Fair Trade certification and beyond.
Yeah, it's a very, very important question, and I think was her name from the Hartman Group? Was her name Melissa?
Melissa, right.
Melissa. She did a really great job, and it's really, again, organics. You guys really do a bad job. I hate to say I'm at an organic conference. Okay, it's like our customers are confused by it, but you know what? You know what they're really concerned about? They're really concerned about the planet. You know what they're really concerned about? They're concerned about the people that are actually in the fields picking their crops. You know what they're also really concerned about? They're really concerned about non-GMO. And I'm so afraid to say this because I don't want to sound ignorant in front of all you experts, but if I'm wrong, correct me. All organic products are non-GMO. Consumers don't know that. And non-GMO is more important to them right now. Now, the other one is fair trade, which is that the people. And you really don't tell the story about the people. And because you're in the organic business, it's very important. And also, free trade is a really important part of it. Now, a fair trade. But fair trade is kind of another term that that consumers don't necessarily understand. But they understand people. Distill it down to things that people can relate to. And I think that's where fair trade needs to tell that story a little bit better and a little bit simpler, okay? Because it is a really important story that resonates with consumers.
Anybody else?
Yeah, for us, it's right. We're partners with our retailers, so our message has got to match the retailers. So if we see that our customers are that's really important to them, we'll share that with our retailers, and we can even focus it down that it's specifically a Sprouts customer or an Albertsons customer, and provide that feedback to them. Remember, we're shopping off their shelf. That's what we're doing. So they're our partners. So the message has got to match what is in store, and so retailers are pretty good about wanting to share that. Again, it's tough to figure out how to message it when somebody's in the middle of shopping. You don't want to drown them with. Listen, my job is to let brands advertise their brands, but we got to be careful how much we push in front of them. We've been figuring out things like tags and stickers on the little buy windows, so you know that this is sustainable or this is organic, non-GMO, things of that nature. But we can crowd it to where you can't even see the picture of the image because you got so many stickers on it. So there's a balance of what we're trying to figure out, and we do it with our retailers, and it's got to be through the retailers with us.
I'm not going to repeat what you said to start, but similarly, we partner with our suppliers. The difference, though, in our marketing is we can get laser focused on our marketing. We're not offering a widespread. We have the widespread message in our brand pillars, but then, like we saw again in the earlier session, different consumers have different needs, and so we actually tailor the message that we go out to our customers. We'll run today. We'll run in the next hour 100 different advertisements on Facebook. 100 different ones. I mean, who does that? Traditional marketing is you put a TV spot together and you run it for 3 months. We're doing 100 today, and they're dynamic, and we're watching how those are performing, and those are being changed. So we're going to have some that are targeted to customers that really value fair trade and get that message across. We're going to get those that are targeted to health. Hey, somebody's got a diabetes or pre-diabetic, we're going to target that. And so the marketing can get much more laser focused, and the messaging needs to come along with that.
Okay. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left, and we could do this for a long time, but let me ask a final question, which is, when consumers go on your different sites, what are the most important things that you think need to be communicated to the consumer, which obviously other retailers should be thinking about in terms of how they target consumers? That's number one. And number two, how can suppliers do a better job of helping you formulate that information and communicate it? Let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think we've got a strategy. So every company has a strategy. You've got to execute that strategy, execute it clearly and flawlessly. And so we need to make sure that our strategy, our message and our strategy is getting directly to our customers. And then the challenge is making sure that the supply chain is consistent with that. And so we've got a lot of suppliers, right? And so how do you ensure that your supply chain is consistent with your message? Well, it's a lot of work. It takes a long time. And so that's what we are constantly battling, constantly keeping current, and making sure that we've got that consistency all the way through.
For us, the number one message is convenience, right? That's what Instacart is all about. If we're not delivering on that message, then Instacart's not a solution for anyone. So for us, number one thing is convenience. And what's important with us, with our suppliers, to what you were just talking about, is nothing's worse than if you shop, and I know people in this room have shopped on Instacart, and you go to buy something and we say it's out of stock, right? Is that an issue with us? Is that an issue with the store because it's not supplied? Did we not get the proper UPC feed to ensure that there is true volume in the stores, to where the customer thinks I got to switch this thing out, or our shopper thinks they have to switch things out? Easiest way for us to lose a customer is that we didn't give them everything they wanted in their basket on a regular basis. That's a critical thing for us, and that is it's a challenge, right? Even for the retailers themselves, it's how do we ensure retailers? It's all about the size of the basket, right? How can we make sure we're increasing our basket size? Same thing with us. And out of stock items, because there's a loss in the feed or a loss in the information from the store to us to the customer, is lost sales for the retailer, lost sales for us, and potentially a lost long-term customer.
So a better line of communication right from the supplier all the way through to the customer. So the minute something's gone, it's marked sold out, so there's no confusion.
Yeah, we just did a huge promotion with PepsiCo. They launched Bubbly, which is their competitor to LaCroix, right? And the whole reason they created this product was because LaCroix was taking so much business from soft drinks that they came out with their own. They launched this thing. It launched first in Target, then it launched abroad. We had such a problem with keeping it in shelf and on store. So sales were great, but it becomes the ever popular term, opportunity cost. How much sales did they lose because so much was left off the shelf? How much sales did they lose from somebody who probably would have liked it but went right back to LaCroix and probably won't try them the next time? That's a hard thing to quantify, right? That long-term value, that's a really big deal. And right, with the retailers, it's still new to them trying to figure out, hey, I got to make sure my images are right. And right, we have a big issue with imaging, right? Coming from a Gladson or someone else back to the retailer through us, it becomes a mess. There's not a uniformity to the images, because you know what you buy and you look at the product and you go, I think that's what I normally buy, but it's this big, the picture, I think it's what it looks like. I hope I'm right, right? And that becomes a big deal. A lot of people say, I don't know if it's right, so I'm not going to add it to my basket. Those are opportunity costs.
Tony.
Dan's absolutely right. So let's start with throwing everything out you're doing now. It's all changing. Vendor relationships are changing. Let's get rid of them. You know, in Europe, it's much different. Partnerships, okay? I want a partnership with you guys. Once I got that partnership, that we work together equally, I'm going to invest in you, you're going to invest in me. Starts with a digital shelf. What's your digital strategy? Make sure your digital assets are clean, okay? That you have everything to tell your story. Then, what is the digital strategy? How are you going to push eyeballs to me to help sell your product? And how am I going to help sell your product? So it's that partnership, and then it really begins at the digital shelf, and it's followed by your digital partnership strategy with the retailer. That's how you guys can really, really help me.
We are out of time. I'm getting this in the back here, because we got keynotes to do. Join me in thanking Tony, Dan, and Don. I think you'd agree we could have gone on forever, but I thank you for your time and your patience, and have a great conference, everybody.